"You have done what was required of you," the Duke of Alderby said, not looking up from the letters on his desk. "The succession is secured. I see no further reason for us to trouble one another. You will remove to the dower house at Fenwick by the end of the month." Adrian Thornhill, 6th Duke of Alderby, heard the small sound his wife made a single indrawn breath, quickly mastered, and told himself it did not signify. He had married Rosalind Vane 3 years before because his solicitors and his dying father had between them arranged it. A quiet, unremarkable girl of good family and no great spirit, and he had discharged his part of the bargain with cold courtesy and no more. Now she had given the house of Alderby its heir, and the bargain was complete, and Adrian, who had never wished to marry at all and resented the whole business as an imposition, saw no reason to prolong the intimacy of a shared roof. "Am I to understand," Rosalind said, and he noted with faint impatience that her voice was quite steady, "that you are sending me away?" "I am arranging matters sensibly," Adrian said. "You shall want for nothing. Fenwick is a comfortable house. You may keep your own establishment there, your own carriage, your own society, such as it is. I ask only that you conduct yourself with the discretion befitting my name." He signed a letter with a flourish. "I am a man who prefers his solitude, madam. I always have been. We have never suited, you and I, and now that the necessary thing is accomplished, I see no cause to pretend otherwise. Surely you would not have us grow old chafing at one another across a dinner table." He looked up then at last and found her regarding him from the doorway, a slight, brown-haired woman in a gray morning gown, her hands folded, her face composed into a stillness he had never troubled to look beneath. She was not weeping. He had half expected weeping. Somehow its absence discomfited him more. "No," Rosalind said quietly, "I would not have that. Very well, your grace. I shall be gone by the end of the month as you wish. You need not concern yourself further with me." She paused. "I hope your solitude gives you all that you expect of it." And she was gone. Adrian returned to his letters. If some small unease moved in him, if the great house seemed, in the weeks that followed her departure, a degree quieter and colder than he had bargained for, he attributed it to nothing more than the natural adjustment of a household to change and put it from his mind. He had what he had always wanted. He had his solitude. He told himself, through that first long winter, that he was content. 4 years passed. They passed, Adrian would later reflect, more slowly than any 4 years of his life. He filled them with the management of his estates which prospered, with the affairs of the county in which his word was law, with the cold satisfactions of a man who answers to no one and is answered by all. He did not go to Fenwick. He sent, each quarter, a sum more than generous, and received in return a brief, correct note of thanks in a hand that grew, over the years, subtly finer and more assured. He did not remark upon it. He did not, if he was honest with himself in the small hours when honesty could not be avoided, allow himself to think of Rosalind Thornhill at all. And then, in the spring of the 5th year, the Duke of Alderby went up to London for the season, a thing he did rarely and disliked heartily, because a matter of politics required his presence, and he attended, with great reluctance, a ball at Carrington House. He was standing at the edge of the room, as was his custom, wearing the expression that had earned him his reputation for cold hauteur, when he became aware that the whole company had turned, as one, toward the great staircase. A woman was descending it. She was, Adrian thought, quite the most striking creature he had seen in years. She wore a gown of deep sapphire silk that caught the candlelight as she moved, and she carried herself with an unhurried, queenly assurance, and there was about her a quality of luminous self-possession that drew every eye in the room and held it. Men bowed as she passed. Women watched her with the particular attention women reserve for one of their own who has mastered the art of being admired. She laughed at something a gentleman said, a low, warm, unforced laugh, and Adrian found, to his own considerable astonishment, that his pulse had quickened at the sound of it. "Who," he said to Lord Carrington, "is that woman?" His host looked at him strangely. "That Alderby? Why, surely you jest." "I do not jest. I have never seen her before in my life. Who is she?" Carrington's face underwent a series of expressions: surprise, incredulity, and then something that was very nearly pity. "My dear fellow," he said slowly, "that is your wife." Adrian Thornhill stood very still. He looked again, really looked, and the world seemed to tilt and rearrange itself beneath his feet. The proud, radiant, admired woman on the staircase was Rosalind. It was Rosalind, and it was not. It was the quiet gray girl he had dismissed with a flick of his pen 5 years before, transformed into something he did not recognize and could not stop looking at. The stillness he had once mistaken for meekness had ripened into a deep and gracious composure. The face he had never troubled to study had come into its own, unhurried, luminous, wholly at ease with itself and the world. She had not needed him, he understood in that reeling moment. She had bloomed without him, had done, perhaps, precisely because he had let her go. She saw him. He watched the recognition cross her face, watched her steady it, watched her incline her head in a greeting of perfect, distant courtesy, as one acknowledges a slight acquaintance. And then she turned back to her circle of admirers as though he were of no more consequence than the pattern in the carpet. And Adrian Thornhill, Duke of Alderby, who had spent 5 years being answered by all and answering to none, stood alone at the edge of the room and felt, for the first time in his life, entirely overlooked. He did not sleep that night. He told himself it was absurd. He told himself he had wanted his solitude and got it, that he had no claim upon her regard, that a man who discards a thing has no business grieving when he finds it flourishing in another's keeping. But the arguments rang hollow, and beneath them, cold and clear, ran a single unbearable current of truth, that he had had something rare and had not known it, that he had held a quiet, steadfast, undemanding devotion in his careless hand, and had thrown it away as one throws away a thing of no worth, and that the woman he had called unsuited to him was the only woman he had ever wished to sit across a dinner table from for the rest of his life. He called at her London house the next morning. He had never in his life called upon anyone. Men called upon the Duke of Alderby. He stood upon her step feeling every inch a supplicant, and was shown into a drawing-room of quiet elegance, and waited a full half-hour, which he understood, with a new and painful humility, was deliberate, before Rosalind came to him. "Your Grace," she said, and offered him her hand with the same cool courtesy she might have shown a stranger. "This is an unexpected honor. To what do I owe it?" Rosalind. Her name felt strange and precious in his mouth. He realized he had scarcely ever spoken it. "I saw you last night. I confess I did not at first know you." "No," she agreed, seating herself and gesturing him to a chair. "I imagine you did not. I was not, when you last troubled to look at me, a person worth remembering." She said it without heat, which was somehow worse than any reproach. "But you have not come, I think, merely to tell me I have changed. What is it you want, Adrian?" He had rehearsed 100 graceful speeches in the sleepless night and found now that not one of them would serve. "I want," he said, and stopped and began again with a plainness that cost him more than pride. "I have been a fool. I married you because I was made to, and I sent you away because I thought I wanted nothing so much as to be left alone, and I have spent 5 years discovering that I was wrong in every particular. I thought you meek. You were only patient. I thought you unremarkable. I had simply never troubled to remark you. I let you go because I believed you were nothing that I wanted, and I have learned, too late, that you were the only thing I have ever wanted at all." For a moment something flickered behind her composed face, some old grief, quickly mastered. Then it was gone. "You are eloquent, Adrian," she said. "Now that I am admired by other men, I wonder whether you would have found these fine words if I had come back to you dowdy and grateful, exactly as you dismissed me." She rose and went to the window. "You did not want me when I was yours. You want me now because London wants me. Forgive me if I find the distinction rather important." "You are right to say so," Adrian said, and did not defend himself because there was no defense. "You are right to distrust me. I have earned every particle of it. I will not insult you by pretending my eyes were not opened at that ball. They were. But hear me, Rosalind. It was not your gown, nor your admirers, nor the turning of the room. It was your laugh. You laughed at something a stranger said, and I realized I had never once in 3 years of marriage heard you laugh, and I understood in that instant that I had lived beside a warm and living woman and had kept her so cold and so small that she never laughed, and that the warmth was there all along, waiting only for someone to want it. I did not deserve to hear it. I want to spend the rest of my life earning the right to. Rosalind did not turn from the window, but she did not send him away either. I will not be sent to Fenwick a second time, she said at last, very low. I will not be a thing you take up when it pleases you and set down when it does not. I have built a life, Adrian, out of the ruins you left me. I have learned that I am worth a great deal more than you once assessed me at. I will not surrender that certainty for any man's belated flattery. I do not ask you to surrender it, he said. I ask you to let me learn it too. Not to command you home, I have no right to command you anything, to court you, properly patiently as I never did, to call and be refused and call again, to prove across whatever span of time you require that the man who dismissed you is dead, and that the man who remains knows precisely what he threw away and will spend his life on his knees for the chance to have it back. He paused. And there is one more thing. There is a small person at Alderby who asks with some regularity when his mother is coming home. I have not known what to tell him. I find I can no longer bear to tell him nothing. At that Rosalind did turn, and for the first time the composure cracked, and Adrian saw beneath it the old tenderness and the old wound both at once. That was cruelly said, she whispered, if you said it only to move me. I said it because it is true, Adrian answered, and because I have done with saying anything but the truth to you for the rest of my life. Come home, Rosalind. Not because I command it, because I am asking, who have never asked anyone for anything, and because I love you, which I did not know how to do 5 years ago and have been learning, alone and too late ever since. She was silent a long while. When she spoke, her voice was steadier than his. Then you will court me, Adrian, she said, as you say, here in London before the very people who watched me be admired last night. You will call, and you will be seen to call, and the whole world that pitied the wife you cast off will watch the great Duke of Alderby humbly courting her. And I will make no promises until I am certain, quite certain, that it is me you want, and not merely the woman other men admire. A ghost of the low, warm laugh he had fallen in love with touched her mouth. I am no longer meek, you understand. I have grown expensive. I would pay any price you named, Adrian said, and count myself a bargain. He courted her through the whole of that season, and it was the talk of London, the coldest duke in England laying siege, patiently and publicly, to the wife he had once discarded, calling at her door with flowers he had chosen himself, sitting through her half-hour delays without complaint, standing at the edge of every ballroom watching her laugh with other men and applauding her the loudest. Society, which had begun by pitying her, ended by envying her, and Rosalind, who had once fled a cold house in a grey gown with her composure held together by will alone, found herself, week by careful week, believing him. He was not the man who had sent her away. That much was plain. This man listened when she spoke, and remembered what she said, and laughed at her wit, and grew easy in her company in a way the old Adrian had never permitted himself to be with anyone. The winter had gone out of him. She had not thought it, her absence had. And when at last, on a warm evening at the very end of the season, he asked her for the second time in their strange marriage, and the first time as a man who understood what he was asking, whether she would come home to Alderby and be his wife in truth, she found that the certainty she had waited for had quietly arrived. Yes, she said, but you will remember, Adrian, all your life that I did not need you, that I bloomed without you, that I came back not because I could not do otherwise but because I chose to. I shall remember nothing else, Adrian said, drawing her hand to his lips. It is the thing I love most in you. You are the one person alive who does not need the Duke of Alderby, and the only one I cannot do without. They went home together, the pair of them, up the long avenue to the great house that had been so cold and quiet for 5 years, where a small person waited on the steps in the gold light of a late summer evening, watching the carriage come. And the House of Alderby, which had secured its succession and lost its soul, learned at long last the one thing its master had never troubled to teach it, how to be, from cellar to attic, warm. He never again mistook patience for meekness, nor stillness for a want of worth. He had made that error once, at the cost of 5 years he could never recover, and a man does not make so ruinous a mistake twice. To the end of his days the Duke of Alderby loved his Duchess as a man loves a thing he very nearly lost forever, carefully, gratefully, and out loud.